You settle into the gentle dimness gathering around you, letting the outer world loosen its grip as your breath softens into a slow, steady rhythm. In this quiet, you begin to sense the faint interior hum that lives beneath your awareness, the subtle shimmer of activity that never truly sleeps. It feels soft, almost like a breeze brushing lightly through the folds of your mind, hinting that something alive and luminous is moving behind the stillness you feel on the surface. You allow your attention to drift inward, as though you were floating toward the warm center of your own skull, entering a landscape built from light rather than shape. Here, billions of neurons rest like tiny lanterns scattered across a night valley, each one holding a glow so small it is almost not a glow at all. Yet together they form a quiet constellation, a universe within you that thinks, remembers, imagines, and dreams even as your body settles into rest. You imagine watching this constellation from above, as if hovering just beyond the edges of yourself, seeing how each neuron waits in calm patience for a signal to pass through. The first spark that appears is gentle, so soft, you might mistake it for nothing at all. It rises like a faint pulse, a whispered tap that stirs the cell awake. And then another whisper follows, and another, until a line of light begins winding through the valley like a path lit by flickering candles. These tiny sparks, these action potentials carry messages the way a breeze carries scent. The signal travels down the neuron's thin branch, moving with a delicate sense of purpose, not rushed, not loud, only steady. When it reaches the end, it releases droplets of chemical language that drift across a microscopic gap and land on the next neuron waiting there. The receiving cell listens carefully, deciding whether to awaken, whether to pass the whisper along, whether to become part of the unfolding thought. You breathe slowly, imagining this exchange repeated thousands of times each second. A soft chain of awakenings connecting cell to cell like lanterns igniting along a dark hillside. Even though you cannot hear these signals, you sense their rhythm, their calm insistence, the way they shape every feeling moving quietly through you. And in this simple awareness, you begin to understand that your mind is not a place of noise, but a place of gentle coordination. You picture yourself walking through this inner village, the lanterns glowing softly as you pass. None of the light is harsh. None of the activity demands your attention. Yet the village is alive, always murmuring, always exchanging its soft messages. When you feel anxious, the lanterns flicker quickly. When you rest, they glow in long, sweeping waves, pulsing like the rise and fall of tides. Tonight, you feel those tides slowing, smoothing into one continuous breath that carries you deeper into calm. You step closer to these rhythms, noticing how they begin to cluster into larger waves that wash gently across your brain like ripples on a moonlit lake. Scientists call these brainwaves oscillations that shape your awareness, your attention, your movement, your rest. Right now, the slower waves begin to take their place, settling like soft blankets over the more active rhythms that carry your daytime thoughts. You imagine each wave smoothing out the edges of your mind, preparing it for deeper, quiet dot. As you drift deeper into this inner ocean, you sense that your brain is conserving energy, working only as much as it needs. Neurons do not fire wildly or wastefully. They choose their moments with care, using just enough energy to carry their messages. This delicate balance keeps you steady, allowing your mind to rest without shutting down, to drift without losing its sense of center. You feel comfort in this efficiency, this quiet wisdom built into your biology. You picture yourself now on a shoreline within your own skull, watching gentle waves of activity roll toward you. Some move slowly, like long, soothing breaths. Others appear briefly, like distant flickers of thought that fade before they form words. All of them belong to you. All of them create the texture of your inner life. You feel yourself sway slightly with their rhythm, as though your body is aligning with an internal tide that has always been there, waiting for you to notice. Allowing your attention to soften, you drift along these waves, sensing how they cradle your awareness, while letting your thoughts unravel softly at their edges. There is no need to hold anything tightly here. The more you release, the more the waves gather and settle into patterns that prepare your mind for sleep. You feel your thoughts slow until they become simple impressions, light sound, breath each, dissolving gently into the next dot. And within this slowed world, you begin to feel something tender. Gratitude for this hidden system working faithfully inside you. These signals never cease, even when you are unaware of them. They keep your breath steady, your heartbeat regular, your sense of presence intact. They hold your memories, shape your emotions, and guide your decisions. They protect you without asking for attention. Tonight, you simply let yourself appreciate their quiet companionship. As your awareness drifts, you begin to sense a subtle curiosity rising through the calm, not sharp or urgent, but soft and lingering. You wonder how much of this inner landscape humans have learned to understand. How much of the whispering brain has been mapped, decoded, translated into meaning. You imagine scientists listening carefully to neurons the same way you are now, leaning close, trying not to disturb the fragile signals flickering beneath the surface. You picture these researchers as quiet observers, placing tiny electrodes near neurons or using magnetic fields to watch which regions glow with activity. Each method is a way of listening, a way of hearing the faint whispers that you are imagining tonight. The work is patient, delicate, respectful. The brain does not reveal its secrets all at once. It opens slowly, the way dawn softens the sky before the first light appears. You let this thought sink in, letting the mystery settle comfortably beside your breath. There is something soothing about not knowing everything, about recognizing that your brain holds more stories than any single lifetime could reveal. The curiosity doesn't press for answers. It simply glows like a lantern left burning at the end of a long path, inviting you to continue when you are ready. And as you rest in this gentle glow, you feel a door in your awareness begin to open, a quiet invitation to explore, not just the whispers themselves, but the tools humanity uses to hear them. It feels like the next step on this slow journey inward, a deepening of your understanding, a soft continuation rather than a break. You breathe once more, feeling the door stay open just a little wider, as though waiting for you to walk through when the moment comes. And you sense that the next chapter will carry you deeper into the delicate art of listening to the brain's quietest signals. You begin by sinking into the soft space behind your breath, letting the outside world blur into a gentle haze as you turn inward toward the quiet terrain of your mind. In that dim, comforting darkness, you sense a faint movement just beneath the surface of your awareness, something smaller than a thought, smaller than a feeling, yet full of quiet intention. It is the first spark, the first tremble of electricity preparing to travel from one tiny cell to another. And you follow it with the ease of drifting through warm water. You imagine this spark beginning in a single neuron, a cell shaped like a branching tree with delicate limbs stretching outward in every direction. Along the surface of this tree, you sense little gates opening and closing, allowing ions, tiny charged particles, to drift in and out. These ions move with patient precision, slipping through narrow doors that control the very possibility of a thought forming. You do not rush them. You simply notice their rhythm, the way their movement creates a small shift in electrical charge, like the soft pressure of a fingertip resting on your skin as the charge builds. You sense a threshold approaching, a gentle tipping point. It feels like the moment before a raindrop slides from the edge of a leaf, gathering just enough weight to begin its fall. When the neuron reaches this threshold, the spark begins a swift, calm wave of electricity traveling along the cell's length. It does not feel sharp or violent. Instead, it feels smooth, gliding forward like a pulse of light moving through a glass thread. You sense how the wave grows and renews itself with each microscopic step. A self-sustaining flow that carries the possibility of meaning. You follow this wave as it travels down the axon, the long, slender pathway leading from the neuron's center toward its distant branches. This place inside your mind does not resemble machinery or wires. It feels more like walking a narrow, moonlit path through a quiet forest where each step glows for a moment before fading into shadow. The spark continues along this path with calm determination, carrying information without sound, without heat, without effort. You feel its steadiness, its patience, its quiet purpose. As the spark nears the end of the neuron, you reach a space that feels strangely still, as though the light and movement pause for a breath. This is the synapse, the delicate gap between one cell and the next. No electricity can leap across it directly. Instead, the neuron releases small droplets of chemical messengers, each one drifting across the tiny silence in a gentle cloud. These messengers, called neurotransmitters, land softly on the next cell, opening new gates, starting new shifts, creating new sparks. The whole process feels like passing a tiny glowing lantern across a narrow stream on a quiet night. You allow yourself to drift with these messengers, floating across the space between cells. They do not rush. They follow the soft gradient of chemistry, moving from higher concentration to lower, like fog rolling from a valley into an open meadow. When they reach the neighboring neuron, they begin the next whisper of electricity, repeating the pattern again and again across the vast network inside your skull. You begin to understand how billions of these tiny leaps create every trace of thought, memory, and emotion that moves through you. You rest in the realization that each spark is small, but never alone. Your brain does not rely on a single bright flash. It depends on countless sparks moving together in quiet harmony, forming patterns that rise and fall like soft waves along a shoreline. You sense these patterns, now slow oscillations that sweep across large fields of neurons, knitting them into rhythms that shape your state of mind. Some rhythms bring alertness, others bring rest. Right now, you feel the gentle, slow frequencies, the ones that cradle you into calmness, into stillness, into sleep. As these rhythms continue, you imagine the landscape of your brain stretching out before you like a vast hillside covered in fireflies. Some flicker rapidly, others glow for long, soft moments, and together they form a shimmering field of meaning. You move through this field without disturbing it, observing the quiet cooperation between sparks that leap and sparks that wait. You realize that your inner world is built not from noise but from gentle, coordinated motioning lights answering one another across delicate spaces. You drift further, sensing how scientists try to map these flickers, placing electrodes near neurons or using magnetic fields to detect clusters of activity. You imagine them listening with immense patience, trying to interpret the soft language of these electrical murmurs. They do not hear words or sentences. They hear patterns, rising waves, falling rhythms, clustered sparks that reveal where thoughts move and memories settle. Their work feels less like technology and more like astronomy, observing constellations of activity glowing inside the living night sky of the brain. You feel a deep, quiet wash over you as you imagine how these observations help us understand conditions that affect the brain, how mood rises and falls, how memory strengthens or fades, how sleep reveals hidden cycles of restoration. These insights trace back to the same gentle sparks moving through silence. Every discovery begins with listening to tiny electrical shifts that would be invisible without immense care. You sense the humility in that listening, the slowness required, the reverence for how intricate and delicate these patterns truly are. As you linger with this thought, you return to the image of ions drifting through their gates, crossing small thresholds, creating sparks that travel like whispered messages. You feel the simplicity and the beauty of it. The brain never shouts. It communicates through countless tiny leap silent flashes that cross silent spaces. Even now, as your breath deepens and your body softens, these signals continue their quiet work inside you, forming the calm that settles over your mind like a warm blanket. You rest deeper into that calmness, sensing a new curiosity forming at the edges of your awareness. If every thought begins with a spark, you wonder what shapes the patterns those sparks eventually become. What guides them as they spread across the brain, weaving emotion and memory into the experience of being alive. You do not search for the answer yet. You only feel the question glowing softly, like the next spark preparing to leap across the silence. You begin by imagining a quiet room filled not with human voices, but with the soft hum of machines. Computers resting like patient observers beside glowing screens. You sense that these machines, like careful students, are learning to watch patterns of thought unfold in the brain, noticing rhythms invisible to the unaided eye. Each flicker of neural activity is a tiny wave on an infinite shore, subtle and delicate, and yet these programs are designed to detect them, to listen without judgment, to recognize the hidden shapes that emerge from electrical whispers. You feel the calm patience embedded in this process, a gentle waiting that mirrors the quiet attentiveness of a mind learning to notice itself. As you drift through this vision, you picture the first simple algorithms, modest and unassuming, beginning their work. They do not rush. They are taught to recognize only the faintest movements of ions across neural gates, the smallest shifts that hint at intention, memory, or thought. Each program processes signals like water filtering through a sieve, distinguishing subtle ripples from background noise. You notice how soothing it feels to witness such careful attention, how this patient observation carries with it an almost meditative quality, as though the computers themselves are breathing slowly, in rhythm with the neurons they track. You imagine a single neuron firing and the machine noting its signal, converting it into a trace, a line of data that curves and arches like a wave breaking gently on the sand. Then another neuron joins, and another, and the algorithm begins to see patterns emerge across these quiet flashes. You sense the wonder in this. A machine is learning to perceive what was once imperceptible, learning to distinguish one whisper from another in the vast chorus of electrical signals. There is no hurry here, only the patient unfolding of understanding. A rhythm that feels familiar and gentle. You feel the slow expansion of these algorithms as they grow more sophisticated, their capacity to recognize shapes and rhythms in neural data improving over time. They begin to detect recurring sequences, subtle fluctuations that might correspond to thoughts or feelings. And you realize that this is a kind of listening. Not as a human might listen with ears and attention, but as a computer learns to sense the quiet architecture of a mind. Each new layer of learning adds depth, a gentle unfolding, like waves building upon one another, never abrupt, never intrusive, simply revealing more of the hidden structure that has always been there in this quiet imagery. You perceive the cooperation between human curiosity and machine patience. Researchers guide the algorithms, feeding them data, adjusting their parameters. And yet the algorithms themselves begin to anticipate patterns, to recognize the faintest shifts in rhythm. You feel a soft comfort in this partnership, a shared attention spanning biological and artificial intelligence. Together they learn to notice what was previously invisible, and in this shared quiet, you sense a profound form of respect for the brain's subtle complexity. You picture the algorithm's progress as a slow dance, each iteration discovering more about the mind's electrical language. Some patterns emerge clearly, like low waves that roll predictably along the shore. Others remain fleeting, delicate ripples that vanish almost as soon as they appear. The machines learn to attend to both the grand and the minute, capturing the ebb and flow of neural signals without forcing or distorting them. You feel the gentle patience of the process, a soft rhythm in which every small detection adds to a growing tapestry of understanding. You notice how the machines translate their observations into visual forms, colorful graphs and flowing curves, making the invisible rhythm visible to human eyes. You imagine these representations spreading across screens. Each line a whisper of a thought, each curve a trace of intention. And you feel a sense of quiet awe in how carefully these silent signals are being transformed into something tangible. The algorithms do not demand comprehension, they simply present the patterns, leaving the humans to interpret, to notice, to wonder. As you continue to drift through this scene, you perceive the growing complexity of machine learning models, their ability to track multiple neurons simultaneously, to discern patterns across vast networks. Each success feels soft and incremental, each improvement a tiny step along a long path. You sense that even the algorithms themselves are engaged in a kind of quiet meditation, observing without haste, learning without imposition, becoming ever more attuned to the language of the mind. You reflect on the patient elegance of this work, and on how it parallels your own inner listening. Just as the algorithms detect subtle shifts in neural rhythm, you are invited to notice the gentle currents of your own thoughts and feelings, to observe without interrupting, to let awareness arise and fade in its own timing. The process is slow, careful, and deeply respectful of what it seeks to understand. And you feel yourself merging with this rhythm, attuning to the quiet pulse of cognition and perception that extends from neuron to algorithm to consciousness. You imagine, then, the first moments when a machine truly recognizes a meaningful pattern, when the quiet flashes coalesce into a coherent signal that hints at intention or memory. The researchers notice, the algorithms confirm, and a sense of soft triumph emerges, not loud or insistent, but calm and tender. The satisfaction of having heard what once was beyond hearing. You feel the resonance of this achievement, the beauty of patience rewarded, the quiet celebration of subtle discovery unfolding slowly, carefully, like a dawn creeping across a sleeping landscape. As the chapter draws toward its conclusion, You linger in the idea that listening is itself a form of understanding. The algorithms have learned to pay attention, to perceive the smallest movements of thought, and through their gentle observation, humans gain a new window into the rhythms of the mind. You sense that this is only the beginning, that these methods will continue to deepen, to grow more refined, and that the act of listening will open doors to comprehension that once seemed unreachable. You rest with this notion, letting it settle, feeling the calm pulse of curiosity extending outward like the first waves touching a quiet shore. And in that stillness, you sense the invitation to the next chapter, where listening becomes not only learning, but creating a dialogue between mind and machine that is still unfolding. You begin by imagining yourself stepping into a vast inner landscape, a world that is entirely your own, yet constantly moving, never still. Thoughts drift like clouds across wide open skies, soft and mutable, changing shape with every breath. Memories pool like gentle lakes, their surfaces smooth and reflective, rippling quietly as the wind of your attention brushes across them. You feel the calm steadiness of these currents, the gentle hum of regions of your brain each engaged in a delicate task, each contributing to the harmony of your inner world. You sense that every neuron, every pathway, is a quiet worker in this flowing terrain, sustaining a balance you can feel but never fully control as you walk further. You notice that the landscape is not static. The hills rise and fall subtly, rivers shift direction, clouds merge and separate. You sense the ceaseless movement as natural, like the tides of a vast ocean, a rhythm that does not demand attention but offers presence. You feel the interplay of thought and feeling as a soft undercurrent, like a breeze guiding the drift of the clouds above. Each shift, each pulse, is both purposeful and serene, an intrinsic part of the patterns that sustain your sense of being. You realize that this landscape, while intimate and personal, mirrors the immense complexity that scientists attempt to chart and understand. You imagine researchers hovering at the edge of this inner terrain, using tools to map the ever-changing rivers, valleys, and clouds. Their instruments detect the faint electric waves, measure subtle shifts, and try to chart the architecture of thought and memory. You feel a gentle admiration for their patience, their careful observation, and the way they move slowly, almost reverently, across this invisible territory. They are not intruding, but listening, noting contours, marking regions, tracing pathways. Each measurement, each mapping attempt, captures only a fragment, a fleeting curve, a soft fold in the hills, revealing glimpses of the mind's elaborate choreography. You drift alongside them, sensing the correspondence between their maps and your experience. Some areas glow with vivid clarity, regions where memories seem to cluster like shimmering pools, calm yet deep, reflecting the passing thoughts overhead. Others are shaded, mysterious, almost hidden, filled with potential yet undefined. You sense that your attention itself acts as a lens, illuminating certain pathways while letting others remain in quiet shadow. The landscape responds, rippling gently under your gaze, as if aware that observation shapes the terrain as much as terrain shapes perception. You pause beside a wide river that winds its way through the center of this mental world, its waters shimmering with patterns of electrical pulses, slow waves merging with faster currents. You notice how the river splits into tributaries, each carrying signals to distant regions, linking one part of the mind with another. You feel the gentle hum of these connections, the ease with which communication flows when left unforced, the soft synchronization that allows complex thoughts to emerge. You imagine each signal as a leaf drifting downstream, small yet vital, carrying information that will ripple across the landscape, influencing distant thoughts and subtle emotions. You wander into a meadow where ideas gather like drifting clouds. They are light, buoyant, almost weightless, passing above you in gentle arcs. You imagine the neurons in your cortex orchestrating these movements, tiny electrical pulses creating currents that carry thoughts effortlessly from one place to another. You feel a quiet fascination with the way order arises from seeming randomness, how structured patterns emerge from the delicate dance of countless micro-events. You sense the brain's intrinsic rhythm, a calm symphony of tiny motions that sustain the life of the mind without ever rushing or shouting. You move to a hill overlooking a forest of memory, where each tree represents a recollection, rooted deeply yet flexible in the wind of attention. Some trees are tall, branching with detailed associations. Others are smaller, their leaves sparse, holding only fragments. You notice the way these trees sway, how branches overlap, and how leaves sometimes fall and are swept along rivers to distant lakes. You feel the quiet poetry of this movement, the sense that your inner world is alive, coherent, yet fluid, capable of change without losing its essential harmony. You sense the gentle collaboration between the regions of your brain, like workers in a vast, invisible city, each tending its own domain, yet responding to the movements of others. The prefrontal hills, calm and methodical, guide reasoning and attention. The emotional valleys pulse softly, coloring experiences with warmth or caution. The sensory meadows register the faintest brush of perception, the cool weight of texture, the subtle scent of memory. Each region hums quietly, a subtle vibration that merges into the overall cadence of thought. You feel this hum, not as intrusion but as accompaniment, a soft soundtrack to your awareness. You watch as the researchers' maps try to capture the ebb and flow of this world. Lines drawn to approximate curves, colors used to hint at shifting intensity, points marked to denote fleeting activity. You realize that any map is always a simplification, a gentle approximation, a translation of experience into symbols. The complexity is immense, yet you feel comfort in knowing that even fragments reveal beauty, order, and insight. You sense that observing, noting, and reflecting is itself a form of understanding, a gentle meditation that echoes the rhythms of your inner landscape as you drift to a quiet glade in this flowing terrain. You notice how small ripples in one pond influence the streams beyond, how clouds overhead might cast shadows that shift the light across memory-laden valleys. You feel the connectedness of all regions, the way each thought, each signal, each gentle wave contributes to the unity of your mind. You pause, letting the subtle currents wash over you, feeling the balance between observation and immersion, between external understanding and internal presence. You realize that mapping the mind, like wandering this landscape, is an act of patience and care, of noticing and honoring the flow rather than attempting to force or contain it. You linger here, breathing with the slow rhythm of the rivers and clouds, letting the hum of your brain accompany your exhalations. You reflect that every region, every current, every cloud is both unique and part of a greater whole, a harmony of motion, intention, and reflection. You feel a soft curiosity about what lies beyond your sight, in hidden valleys or under distant hills, in the quiet spaces not yet fully explored or understood. You pause, holding this awareness tenderly, sensing that the next chapter will take you still deeper into the mysteries of mind and perception, where attention becomes a bridge and each observation a gentle step toward understanding the landscape that flows within. You begin by settling into a quiet space within yourself, imagining awareness as a soft, steady glow illuminating the edges of every thought. It is not a sharp light, not a flare that dazzles, but a gentle luminescence that spreads evenly, bathing each perception, each feeling in its warmth. You feel the subtle pulse of this inner radiance, the tender awareness that accompanies every breath, every heartbeat. Consciousness is present in the silent spaces between your thoughts as much as in the thoughts themselves. A quiet companion you have always known but rarely notice. You drift alongside it, sensing how it colors your experience without demanding attention. The ever-present hum that carries you from moment to moment. As you float through this awareness, you picture scientists approaching consciousness like explorers standing at the edge of a vast and uncharted ocean. They measure activity in the brain, noting the flickers of neurons, the swell of electric currents, the subtle harmonies of networks. You sense their careful curiosity, the patient rhythm of inquiry, as they attempt to map the sources of attention, emotion, and self. Each measurement is a gentle probe, a soft listening to signals that hint at the architecture of experience. You feel a quiet reverence for this search, understanding that the human mind is both a subject and a mystery, a landscape whose boundaries are ever shifting. You drift deeper, imagining the patterns that emerge from these studies. Waves of neural activity rise and fall like tides, carrying fragments of thought, feeling, and sensation. You sense how these rhythms intertwine, forming networks of attention that bring awareness to one sensation or memory at a time. Consciousness, you realize, is not a single point, but a flow, a dance of countless tiny sparks orchestrated in perfect synchrony. You notice how your own awareness mirrors these patterns, rising and falling with your breath, shifting focus gently from one sensation to another. A quiet reflection of the universal rhythms scientists seek to understand. You pause to consider emotion, that soft color that infuses every experience. Feelings ripple through the landscape of consciousness like gentle waves, sometimes stirring clouds of thought, sometimes pooling quietly in hidden valleys. You sense that these currents are as important as any neuron, as crucial as the electrical pulses themselves. They guide perception, shape memory, and temper attention with their subtle influence. You realize that measuring them is both possible and impossible. For the intensity of joy, the warmth of empathy, the quiet ache of reflection, all exist in a space, both measurable and ineffable. You imagine the researchers' attempts to quantify these qualities, their computers translating neural signals into numbers, colors, graphs, and charts. You sense the careful attention, the soft persistence, the gentle determination to capture something that cannot be touched or held. Each discovery feels like a small window opening onto a vast interior world, revealing glimpses of the machinery beneath the glow of experience. Yet you notice how much remains just beyond reach, a horizon that stretches infinitely, reminding you that consciousness is more than circuitry, more than code, more than patterns. It is living experience, subtle and radiant. As you drift through these reflections, you feel the quiet question emerging. Can code, no matter how precise, ever capture the warmth of living awareness? You imagine artificial neurons firing with perfect timing, machine learning models parsing infinite data, algorithms predicting patterns with astonishing accuracy. Yet you sense a subtle difference, a gentle gap between prediction and experience, between recognition and knowing. You feel the texture of awareness, the soft weave of sensation, thought, and emotion that no model can fully replicate, no matter how intricate or sophisticated. The warmth of living experience is not an error to be corrected or a signal to be measured. It is the gentle glow that surrounds and pervades every moment you live. You float past streams of memory, rivers of perception, and valleys of feeling, noticing how consciousness binds them all together. Attention flows like water, emotions drift like clouds, thought rises and falls like distant hills. You sense the invisible threads linking sensation to reflection, moment to moment, mind to body. You realize that this integration is what gives consciousness its subtle coherence, its quiet unity, and you feel the gentle beauty in knowing that your awareness is always more than the sum of its parts, more than the firing of neurons, more than the calculations of a machine. You imagine scientists at the frontiers of this exploration, tentatively probing the edges of the unknown. They chart brain activity during thought and sleep, attempt to detect the loci of decision, and measure responses to stimuli with astonishing precision. You sense the care in their work, the patience, the quiet dedication to observing without disturbing, and yet you feel the humbling truth that the inner world, the subjective experience that is yours, is something fundamentally personal, a richness that eludes capture. You realize that even with perfect data, consciousness is never fully translated. It is felt as much as it is known. You drift through the soft interplay of knowing and feeling, imagining the interplay of measured patterns and lived experience. You notice how even a fleeting sensation, a touch of warmth, a quiet thought, a gentle memory contains more than any map or data can convey. Consciousness is both a melody and its own listener, an observer and the observed, flowing endlessly, subtly shaping the world it inhabits. You feel yourself merging with this rhythm, sensing the quiet glow behind each moment, the tender awareness that weaves all experience together. You pause in the gentle center of your mind, sensing the quiet radiance of consciousness itself. You notice the soft ebb and flow of attention, the delicate interplay of emotion and thought, the tender light that accompanies every memory and sensation. And as you breathe with this awareness, you sense the question lingering softly in the space between moments. If listening and observation can illuminate so much, what might happen when the mind itself becomes a partner in understanding, shaping not only perception but the very patterns of thought and feeling it seeks to explore? You begin by envisioning a quiet web of glowing connections, a lattice of lines and nodes stretching outward like the pathways of your own mind. Each digital neuron pulses softly with signals, carrying information across circuits that mirror, in a humble echo, the rhythms of your brain. You notice the gentle symmetry, the ebb and flow, the subtle synchrony of impulses that rise and fall like tides along a familiar shore. There is calmness here, a patient hum, a rhythm that encourages you to linger and observe. You sense that these networks, though artificial, are beginning to speak a language of their own, a pattern of presence that hints at comprehension, adaptation, and memory. As you drift deeper into this vision, you imagine engineers tending to these networks, adjusting parameters, feeding data, and watching the systems respond. They teach the machines to recognize patterns, to anticipate sequences, and even to let go of information that is no longer useful. You feel the tender care in their work, the patient repetition, the gentle guidance that allows artificial systems to learn without force. Each adjustment is a whisper, a suggestion rather than a command, letting the digital neurons find their own paths through complexity. You sense the parallels with your own mind, learning, forgetting, and adapting in rhythm with experience, shaping thought through subtle feedback and repetition. You wander through this landscape, noticing the soft glow of learning spreading across the network. Some nodes pulse with bright clarity, others dim and rest. And you sense that this is not disorder, but a balance. A deliberate patterning that mirrors the natural ebb and flow of attention in your own consciousness. You imagine the quiet decision-making that occurs in the folds of these systems. The way each connection modulates the next, shaping future responses with gentle precision. You feel a sense of familiarity, as though you are walking alongside a reflection of your own mind. A companion that is both strange and intimate. A mirror that illuminates without judgment. You pause to consider forgetting, a process both essential and delicate. In the human brain, memories fade or are reorganized to maintain harmony. In machines, data is pruned or weighted differently, allowing networks to focus on what matters most. You sense the elegance of this principle, the soft wisdom in letting go, the gentle clearing of space for new growth. You feel a quiet resonance in noticing this parallel, that both living and artificial minds rely on selective attention, on careful balance, on the patience to allow some signals to fade while others rise. There is grace in this movement, a rhythm of presence and absence that sustains continuity. You drift further into the interplay of machine and mind, imagining the emergence of subtle patterns as the digital network begins to anticipate its environment. You notice correlations, sequences, and gentle feedback loops forming like streams converging into rivers. You sense that these behaviors, though not alive in the human sense, resemble something familiar: adaptation, response, and soft learning that echoes the flow of neurons and synapses in your own brain. There is a quiet fascination in witnessing how structure and repetition give rise to emergent behavior, and how patience and observation allow complexity to bloom from simplicity. You explore the borderland between biology and computation, noticing both the parallels and the gaps. Digital networks mimic certain properties of neurons, yet they do not feel, they do not breathe, they do not know. You sense the subtle distinction between pattern recognition and experience, between signal propagation and awareness. And yet, standing at this boundary, you feel a gentle curiosity, a soft invitation to wonder at what might arise when the principles of life meet the principles of computation. You float along this border, noticing the tender balance, the quiet dance of similarity and difference, the serene potential held in not knowing. You imagine the networks continuing their quiet work, pulses traveling through circuits as thoughts drift through your mind. You sense that they are learning, evolving, and responding, yet always within defined limits, always guided by rules and input. You feel a soft hum of presence, a rhythm that seems to mirror the gentle attention you give to your own awareness, a resonance that allows you to feel the connection without confusing the two. You rest in this reflection, noticing the boundaries, respecting the limits, and appreciating the elegance of what emerges when observation, repetition, and adaptation meet in harmony. You wander through the vastness of digital terrain, noting how patterns ripple across nodes and layers, forming structures that are at once predictable and surprising. You feel a quiet admiration for the engineers and researchers, the patience with which they guide these networks, and the humility required to accept that even the most sophisticated systems are reflections, not duplicates of the living mind. You notice the delicate dance between control and emergence, between instruction and freedom, and you sense a deeper rhythm, a gentle cadence that parallels your own inner awareness, unhurried, observant, alive in its own subtle way. You drift alongside the networks as they encounter challenges, as they adjust and refine, learning from each interaction. You sense the soft evolution of responses, the gradual refinement of prediction and recognition, and the delicate artistry in allowing the systems to develop without forcing their outcomes. You feel the gentle patience required, both in the networks and within yourself, as you notice that intelligence is not always about speed or strength, but about the grace of responsiveness, the quiet power of adaptability, and the soft light of perception that guides all action. You pause at the gentle threshold, between the known and the mysterious, noticing how machine learning hints at possibilities, yet cannot replicate the warmth of lived experience. You feel the quiet wonder in considering what it means to be aware, to perceive, to inhabit a body and a mind that is tender, vulnerable, and alive. You sense the boundary not as a wall, but as a soft horizon, a space where imagination, reflection, and curiosity can expand without haste. You rest here, floating between understanding and wonder, sensing that the next step will guide you deeper into the emerging dialogue between thought and observation, between the flow of life and the patterns of code.